echoes in the dark. Rain drummed against the old windows of the dilapidated mansion, each drop a reminder of the storm brewing outside. Sarah shivered, pulling her cardigan tighter around her. She cursed herself for agreeing to house-sit for her uncle. The mansion, a crumbling relic of a bygone era, was miles away from civilization, perched on a lonely hill. The electricity had gone out hours ago, leaving her with only the dim glow of a few candles. Shadows danced eerily on the walls, creating grotesque shapes that seemed almost alive. The wind howled, seeping through the cracks in the walls, carrying with it an unsettling whisper. Sarah tried to focus on her book, but the words blurred as her mind kept drifting to the mansion's history. Her uncle had bought it at an auction, charmed by its old-world elegance and oblivious to the dark stories that clung to it like cobwebs. Tales of disappearances and madness, of a family that had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only their screams that, some said, still echoed through the halls. A creaking noise snapped Sarah out of her thoughts. She looked up, heart pounding. The sound had come from upstairs. She held her breath, listening. Silence. Then, just as she was about to convince herself it was nothing, the creak came again, followed by a soft thud. She stood up, her legs trembling. "It's just an old house," she whispered to herself. Old houses make noises. But deep down, she didn't believe it. She grabbed a candle and made her way to the grand staircase. The flickering light cast long, sinister shadows on the walls. As she climbed the stairs, each step seemed to groan under her weight, amplifying the sense of dread that had settled over her. At the top, she paused, straining her ears. The sound had come from the left, down the hallway that led to the master bedroom. "Hello?" she called out, her voice trembling. No answer. She forced herself to walk down the hallway, the candle casting eerie light on the portraits that lined the walls. The eyes of long-dead relatives seemed to follow her, their expressions twisted by the shadows. She reached the master bedroom and hesitated. The door was slightly ajar, a sliver of darkness beckoning her. Taking a deep breath, she pushed it open. The room was cold, much colder than the rest of the house. The wind had picked up outside, and the window rattled in its frame. Sarah stepped inside, the floorboards creaking under her feet. She held the candle high, its feeble light barely penetrating the gloom. The room was empty. She let out a sigh of relief, feeling foolish for letting her imagination get the better of her. Then she saw it. In the corner of the room, where the shadows were darkest, something moved. She froze, her heart racing. The figure was hunched over, its features obscured by the darkness. She could hear it breathing, a ragged, uneven sound that sent chills down her spine. "Who's there?" she demanded, her voice stronger than she felt. The figure didn't respond. Instead, it began to straighten up, unfolding itself from the shadows. Sarah took a step back, her mind screaming at her to run, but her feet felt glued to the floor. The figure stepped into the candlelight, revealing a gaunt, ghostly face with hollow eyes that seemed to stare right through her. Its mouth opened, and a sound escaped, a low, mournful wail that echoed in the room. Sarah turned and fled, the candle blowing out in her haste. She stumbled down the hallway, her only thought to get out of the house. She reached the stairs and half ran, half fell down them, her breath coming in panicked gasps. She reached the front door and yanked it open, the storm outside a welcome relief from the oppressive darkness inside. She ran out into the rain, not caring about the mud that splashed up her legs or the branches that whipped her face. She kept running until she reached the road, her lungs burning and her legs aching. She looked back, the mansion a dark silhouette against the stormy sky. The figure stood in the doorway, watching her with those hollow eyes. Sarah didn't stop running until she reached the nearest house, pounding on the door until it opened. The kind, elderly couple inside took her in, listened to her frantic story, and called the police. When the police arrived at the mansion, they found nothing. No sign of the figure, no evidence of anyone else being in the house. They dismissed her story as the product of an overactive imagination and the eerie atmosphere of an old, isolated house. But Sarah knew what she had seen. She knew the mansion was haunted by something far more sinister than just old stories. She never returned to her uncle's house, and he eventually sold it, unable to ignore the chill that had settled over it. Years later, Sarah heard that the new owners had also fled, driven out by strange noises and sightings. The mansion still stands, a decaying monument to its dark past, its empty halls echoing with the whispers of those who vanished within its walls. And on stormy nights, if you listen closely, you can hear the wail of the ghost that haunts it, a mournful sound that chills the blood and reminds you that some places are better left alone. Title: Echoes of the Forgotten. In the small, forgotten town of Swamwood, nestled deep within the mist-covered forests, whispers of the supernatural danced among the shadows. It was a place where time seemed to stand still, where ancient secrets lay buried beneath the soil, and where the line between the living and the dead blurred with each passing night. In the heart of Swamwood stood an old, decrepit mansion known as Blackwood Manor. Its once grand facade was now weathered and worn, its windows boarded up as if to shield the horrors within from prying eyes. For years, the mansion had stood abandoned, a silent sentinel watching over the town like a ghostly specter. But on this particular night, a group of adventurous teenagers dared to breach the mansion's forbidden threshold. Among them was Sarah, a spirited girl with a penchant for danger, and her loyal friends, Alex, Mia, and Jake. Armed with nothing but flashlights and a sense of curiosity, they ventured into the darkness, unaware of the malevolent forces that awaited them within. As they crossed the threshold, the air grew thick with a palpable sense of dread. Shadows danced upon the walls, and the floorboards creaked beneath, their feet as if protesting their intrusion. But the teenagers pressed on, their excitement overshadowing their fear as they explored the mansion's labyrinthine corridors. It wasn't long before they stumbled upon a hidden staircase leading down into the bowels of the mansion. Ignoring the warning signs, they descended into the darkness, their footsteps echoing eerily in the silence. The air grew colder with each step, and a sense of foreboding settled over them, like a suffocating blanket. At the bottom of the staircase, they found themselves in a dimly lit chamber adorned with arcane symbols and flickering candlelight. In the center of the room stood an ancient altar, its surface stained with dried blood, and kneeling before it was a figure cloaked in shadow, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. Frozen with fear, the teenagers watched as the figure began to chant in a language long forgotten by mortal tongues. The air crackled with dark energy, and the very walls seemed to pulse with malevolence. And then, with a deafening roar, the chamber erupted in a burst of unholy fire, consuming everything in its path. In the chaos that followed, Sarah and her friends found themselves separated, each one fighting for survival amidst the inferno. As flames licked at their heels and shadows reached out to ensnare them, they struggled to find a way out of the mansion's cursed embrace. But just when all hope seemed lost, they stumbled upon a hidden passage leading to safety. Gasping for breath and covered in soot, they emerged from the mansion's burning ruins, their hearts pounding with adrenaline and their minds reeling from the horrors they had witnessed. As they stood outside in the cool night air, they watched in horror as Blackwood Manor collapsed in on itself, its cursed existence finally coming to an end. And as the dust settled and the flames died down, they knew that they had narrowly escaped a fate far worse than death. But even as they walked away from the smoldering ruins, they could still hear the echoes of the forgotten, whispering their secrets on the wind. For in Swamwood, some things were better left undisturbed, lest they awaken the darkness that lurked within us all. The Shadows of La Isla del Cielo. Dr. Emily Windsor, a brilliant and adventurous archaeologist from England, had always been fascinated by the secrets of the ancient Mayans. Her latest expedition to La Isla del Cielo, a remote island off the coast of Mexico, was meant to uncover the secrets of a long-abandoned temple. But as she delved deeper into the ruins, she began to realize that some secrets were better left unspoken. The island's locals warned her of an ancient curse, a malevolent force that had haunted the island for centuries. Emily dismissed their tales as mere superstition, but the eerie silence and the unexplained occurrences began to unsettle her. Her team started to experience strange visions and heard whispers in the wind, warning them to leave the island. As Emily ventured deeper into the temple, she discovered a series of ancient artifacts and murals depicting a dark ritual. She realized that the Mayans had awakened an ancient evil, a powerful entity known as Ixchel, the goddess of death and rebirth. The entity had lain dormant for centuries, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. One by one, Emily's team members vanished, pulled into the darkness by an unseen force. She searched for answers, but the only clue was the faint whisper of Ixchel's name. The locals feared to speak of her, as if the mere mention of her name would summon the evil that lurked in every shadow. As the night wore on, Emily found herself alone, facing the wrath of Ixchel. The goddess's eyes burned with an otherworldly intensity, and her presence was both captivating and terrifying. "You should not have come here," Ixchel whispered, her breath a cold caress on Emily's neck. "Now you will join the others trapped in the shadows of
La isla del cielo forever."
Emily tried to run, but her feet felt heavy, as if rooted to the spot. Ixchel's power was mesmerizing, drawing her deeper into the darkness. She felt herself being pulled into a world beyond her own, a realm of ancient secrets and forgotten lore. As she descended into the depths of the temple, Emily encountered the remnants of a long-lost civilization. She saw the remnants of a once great city, the ruins of a people who had been consumed by their own darkness. And at the heart of it all, she found the source of the curse, a powerful artifact created by the Mayans to summon Ixchel's power. But Emily soon realized that she was not alone. The other team members, thought to be dead, were trapped in the shadows, their souls bound to the island by Ixchel's curse. They whispered to her, their voices barely audible, warning her of the dangers that lay ahead. With newfound determination, Emily set out to uncover the secrets of the artifact and break the curse. She navigated treacherous tunnels and chambers, avoiding deadly traps and puzzles designed to keep intruders out. And finally, she reached the heart of the temple, where the artifact lay waiting. As she reached for it, Ixchel appeared, her eyes blazing with fury. Emily stood firm, knowing that she had to confront the darkness head-on. And in a burst of courage, she shattered the artifact, releasing the trapped souls and breaking the curse. The temple began to crumble, the shadows receding as the darkness was vanquished. Emily and her team emerged into the bright sunlight, free at last from the shadows of La Isla del Cielo. They knew that they would never forget the horrors they had faced, but they also knew that they had uncovered a secret that would change the course of history. As they sailed away from the island, Emily couldn't help but wonder what other secrets lay hidden in the shadows, waiting to be uncovered. And she knew that she would be back, ready to face whatever darkness lay ahead. The abandoned laboratory of Dr. Vortex, deep in the heart of the scorching desert, where the blistering sun drained the life out of every living creature, stood an eerie structure that struck fear into the hearts of all who crossed its path. This was no ordinary building, but an abandoned laboratory, once home to the deranged mind of Dr. Vortex, a scientist who had delved too deep into the mysteries of life and death. The laboratory's walls, once a gleaming white, now stood as a dull gray, like the belly of a beast that had devoured all in its path. The windows, once transparent, had turned a murky brown, as if the very darkness within had seeped out and stained them. The entrance, a massive metal door with rusted hinges, creaked ominously in the desert wind, beckoning brave adventurers to enter its depths. Rumors whispered among the nomadic tribes spoke of Dr. Vortex's unholy experiments, of his quest to defy the laws of nature and create life from death. They spoke of his failures, of the abominations that lurked within the laboratory's walls, and of the unspeakable horrors that had driven him to madness. One fateful day, a group of thrill-seekers, eager to uncover the secrets within, decided to explore the abandoned laboratory. They laughed and joked as they approached the entrance, but their merriment was short-lived. As they pushed open the creaking door, a musty smell, like the stench of decay, wafted out, and an unsettling silence enveloped them. The group of friends, all in their early 20s, stepped cautiously into the darkness, their flashlights casting eerie shadows on the walls. The air inside was heavy with the weight of forgotten dreams and shattered hopes. Every step echoed through the deserted corridors, as if the laboratory itself was warning them to turn back. They discovered the first sign of Dr. Vortex's madness in a room filled with rusted medical equipment and dusty beakers. A lone, flickering light bulb cast an eerie glow on a series of grotesque, hand-drawn illustrations depicting the stages of human decomposition. The friends exchanged uneasy glances, but their curiosity propelled them forward. Deeper into the laboratory, they stumbled upon a chamber filled with rows of dusty, glass containers. Each jar held a strange, pulsating mass, like a living, breathing entity. The friends approached cautiously, sensing that these were no ordinary specimens. As they peered closer, the masses began to stir, their pulsations quickening, as if awakened by the group's presence. Suddenly, the containers shattered, releasing a swarm of dark, winged creatures that enveloped the group. The friends tried to flee, but the creatures, with razor-sharp talons, held them in place. The laboratory's silence was shattered by the group's screams, which echoed through the corridors as the creatures feasted on their terror. One by one, the friends disappeared, dragged into the depths of the laboratory, never to be seen again. The last one standing, a young woman named Sarah, stumbled upon Dr. Vortex's inner sanctum. The room was a shrine to his madness, filled with twisted, mechanical contraptions and the remnants of his failed experiments. In the center of the room, a massive cylindrical device hummed with an otherworldly energy. Dr. Vortex's journal lay open on a nearby workbench, detailing his final, desperate attempt to defy death. As Sarah read the words, the device began to glow, and a figure, stitched together from the remnants of the group, emerged from the shadows. The creature, a twisted amalgamation of flesh and metal, spoke in a voice that was both Dr. Vortex's and yet not his. "You should not have come here," it growled. "Now you will join my eternal experiment." Sarah tried to flee, but the creature's mechanical limbs ensnared her. As the device reached its climax, a blinding flash of light enveloped the laboratory, and the desert wind howled in agony. When the light faded, the laboratory stood still, its secrets locked within, and Sarah was never seen again. The abandoned laboratory of Dr. Vortex remained, a haunting sentinel, warning all who dared approach of the horrors that lurked within. The desert tribes whispered of the place, where the boundaries between life and death were blurred, and the madness of one man had unleashed a terror beyond comprehension. And so the laboratory stood, a monolith to the horrors that humanity was capable of unleashing when it delved too deep into the mysteries of existence. Its walls, once gray, now seemed to absorb the light around them, as if the very darkness within had consumed all in its path. The entrance, once a creaking metal door, now stood as a silent, ominous warning. Turn back, while you still can. The shadow of the maestro. In the picturesque town of Vienna, Austria, a city renowned for its grand palaces, opera houses, and rich musical heritage, a legendary conductor named Leonid Meyerstein held sway over the classical music scene. His performances were mesmerizing, his talent unparalleled, and his reputation shrouded in mystery. For years, music enthusiasts and critics alike had attempted to unravel the enigma that was Meyerstein, but he remained an elusive figure, his personal life a closely guarded secret. Chapter 1: The Obsession. Young and ambitious violinist, Sophia Ellis, had always idolized Maestro Meyerstein. She would attend his performances, entranced by the way his baton seemed to weave magic, coaxing sublime beauty from the orchestra. Sophia's dream was to play under his direction, to learn from the master himself. She spent hours practicing, perfecting her craft, and studying Meyerstein's techniques. Her friends and family began to worry about her fixation, but Sophia couldn't help herself. She was consumed by the desire to become a part of the maestro's world. One evening, Sophia finally gathered the courage to approach Meyerstein at a post-concert reception. As she waited in line to meet him, her heart raced with anticipation. When it was her turn, she introduced herself, her voice trembling slightly. Meyerstein's piercing gaze locked onto hers, and for an instant Sophia felt like he could see into her very soul. "Ah, Sophia Ellis," he said, his voice low and hypnotic. "I've heard of your talent.
You have a certain, je ne sais quoi.
A spark within you that cannot be taught." Sophia was taken aback by his words, but before she could respond, Meyerstein continued, "Come to my studio, Sophia. Let us create music that will transcend the boundaries of mortality." Chapter 2: The Encounter. The invitation was like a dream come true for Sophia. She arrived at Meyerstein's studio, a labyrinthine lair hidden behind the grandeur of the opera house. As she entered, the air grew thick with an eerie energy, the shadows seeming to writhe like living things. The maestro greeted her with a warm smile, his eyes gleaming with an otherworldly intensity. "Welcome, Sophia. I sense that you have a hunger within you, a desire to create something truly extraordinary. I can help you unlock that potential, but you must be willing to trust me completely." Sophia nodded eagerly, her heart racing with excitement. Meyerstein began to teach her, pushing her to the brink of exhaustion and beyond. His methods were unorthodox, to say the least. He would play strange, dissonant melodies on his piano, and Sophia would have to improvise, trying to find harmony within the chaos. He would speak in hushed tones, his words dripping with an unsettling allure, as if he was sharing secrets that only the initiated could understand. As the lessons progressed, Sophia found herself becoming more and more entranced. She began to experience strange visions, her music infused with an unsettling power. She would see flashes of darkness, like a presence lurking just beyond the edge of her perception. But whenever she tried to confront Meyerstein about these occurrences, he would simply smile and tell her that she was on the path to greatness. Chapter 3: The Descent. As Sophia delved deeper into Meyerstein's world, she started to notice strange occurrences around her. Other musicians who had studied with the maestro would whisper warnings, telling her to be careful, that Meyerstein was not what he seemed. But Sophia was too enthralled to listen. She was convinced that the maestro held the key to unlocking her true potential. One night, Sophia arrived at the studio to find Meyerstein pacing back and forth, his eyes blazing with an intense energy. He spoke in a low, urgent tone, his words tumbling out in a mad rush. "Sophia, the time has come. You are ready to take the final step. Come, let us create music that will shake the very foundations of the earth." Sophia felt a shiver run down her spine as Meyerstein led her to a hidden chamber deep within the studio. The air was thick with the scent of incense, and the walls seemed to vibrate with an otherworldly power. In the center of the room, a strange instrument stood, its strings humming with an eerie glow. "This is the instrument of the gods," Meyerstein whispered, his eyes aglow with an unholy light. "Play it, Sophia, and you shall unleash a power beyond your wildest dreams." Chapter 4: The Haunting. As Sophia played on, she felt a presence around her, a malevolent force that seemed to be feeding off her music. The notes she played grew more discordant, more twisted, and she knew she had to stop. But her fingers seemed to move of their own accord, as if possessed by some dark energy. Meyerstein watched her with an unnerving intensity, his eyes gleaming with an otherworldly light. "Yes, Sophia, yes. You are unlocking the secrets of the instrument. You are unleashing the power of the ancients." Sophia's mind reeled in horror as she realized the truth. Meyerstein was not a maestro, but a vessel for an ancient evil, a being from a realm beyond human comprehension, and she had fallen into his trap, enticed by the promise of greatness. Chapter 5: The Confrontation. With a surge of adrenaline, Sophia flung the instrument aside and confronted Meyerstein. "What have you done to me?" she demanded, her voice shaking with rage and fear. Meyerstein's smile grew wider, his eyes blazing with an infernal intensity. "You have been chosen, Sophia. chosen to be a vessel for the darkness that lurks beyond the veil. And soon, you will join the ranks of the damned, forever bound to the service of the Ancient Ones. Sophia knew she had to escape, but Meyerstein's studio seemed to shift and twist around her, like a living labyrinth. She stumbled through the darkness, desperate to find a way out, but every door led only to more shadows, more terrors. Chapter 6: The Aftermath. When Sophia finally emerged from the studio, she was forever changed. Her music was now a haunting echo of the horrors she had faced, a reminder of the terrible price she had paid for her ambition. Meyerstein was gone, vanished into the night, leaving behind only the whispers of his dark legacy. In the years that followed, Sophia's music became a sensation, a haunting reminder of the dangers of ambition and the horrors that lurked in the shadows. But she knew the truth, that her talent was a curse, a reminder of the darkness that had almost consumed her. And when she took the stage, her violin singing with an otherworldly beauty, she knew that she was not alone. For in the shadows, Meyerstein's presence lurked, waiting for the next victim to fall into his trap, waiting for the next musician to succumb to the darkness that lurked within. Epilogue. In Vienna's Grand Opera House, a lone violinist sometimes takes the stage, her music a poignant reminder of the terrible price paid for genius. Some say it is Sophia, her soul forever trapped in the shadow of the maestro, her melody a haunting warning to those who would dare to dance with the darkness. Others claim it is Meyerstein himself, returned from the depths of hell to claim another victim for his dark art. But one thing is certain: the music that echoes through those hallowed halls is a testament to the horrors that lurk in the shadows, waiting to ensnare the unwary. And those who listen too closely may find themselves forever trapped in the abyss of sound, forever bound to the service of the Ancient Ones.